Thank you so much, Marcus. Good morning to everybody. Hi, I'm Nandu Goswami, as you heard from Marcus, and I'm going to do the joint presentation together with my colleague Diana. Diana, perhaps you can put up our presentation. As Marcus pointed out, we have been collaborating with AD Instruments for quite some time right now. Perhaps go to the first slide, Diana. Thank you. Okay. I got to know about AD Instruments way back in 2014. Actually, it was amazing because it wasn't in Europe. I got to know about AD Instrument. It was in South Africa, and apparently they have been using this stuff for quite a long time. Now that was surprising because in in this part, I mean, I've been at this university from 2006, and we never even used or even heard about that equipment. I mean, in terms of as a teaching tool, it's a very good research tool. Has been, in fact, quite a few of our colleagues already had it as a research unit. I mean, they were using it as a research, equipment for their measurements, but not really for their teaching. And that's why it came as a surprise to me in 2014 in Durban. I remember when actually I met Marcus and other colleagues from AD Instruments, and I was like, wow, this could really be cool. And one of my good friends and collaborators from South Africa, from Stellenbosch, actually Professor Hans Striedom, he's currently the head of physiology there in University of Stellenbosch in Cape Town. He told me that in South Africa they have been using this for quite a long time, and in fact, AD Instrument is an active supporter of physiology in South Africa, and that was like really nice. So I had a lot of discussions with our colleagues there, and then came back and discussed with the European partners how could we collaborate. But like all of us know, when you have a new idea, there is a massive resistance, of course. So we had quite a lot of, no, what should happen? Should we continue? Should we accept? Oh, it costs a lot of money and other aspects. But somehow, I think as time went on, people saw the value of what we were doing with AD Instruments in terms of teaching. So we started discussions more and more with, Timo and the other colleagues from the team, and of course also with, Helen, who was also in Vienna with our meeting. So it was really nice. So we kind of could convince our management that AD Instrument could be the way of the future. But there was one thing really against us, let's say that way, because there was really no need. People were saying, well, you can teach during your practicals, why do you need online platforms and all that stuff? So somehow we had to keep on convincing. We had, as Marcus rightly pointed out, a few meetings here where we had people from our management, and they slowly got convinced that this is a good stuff to have. And in 2018 we actually founded our research unit of teaching unit of excellence together with AD Instrument, and that has really kind of rocketed our work with AD Instrument. And last year, of course, with the corona crisis, this is a catastrophe in every dimension. But in terms of online teaching, this was a great blessing. And so suddenly we had to kind of start shifting a lot of our teaching already, I mean, like all over the world, to online platform. And suddenly AD Instrument was the choice, of course. So we had no problem convincing our management that we need to do that. So we immediately started working with it. So having worked already with AD Instrument for 2-3 years, and having some of the support from the AD Instrument, which I thank every one of you here for providing that great support. Really, we are really eternally grateful, all the way from Tony McKnight to everybody here who has really helped us, personally, and also in terms of setting up the unit of teaching unit of excellence. It was really easy to convince our management, the rectorate and everybody, that this is really a good tool. So last year we started experimenting, and as everyone here is an expert in LT and other things, I don't need to emphasize the importance of the LT. But one thing it was very clear is that we really wanted to start using that. And so again, there was a bit of uncertainty. When is everybody going to come back? Is it going to be delayed? Is it really going to be full online? Is it going to be a hybrid? So luckily for us, we have a great person who has been working with us, my colleague Diana, who is now actually going to present. She came up with brilliant ideas. So we had very nice discussions, and we came up with few variants that we could use, a full blown online model or a mishmash model where we could really kind of use a little bit of the hybrid in nature, where some students were coming and others we could do online. So I think all I can say here on my behalf is that we are really grateful to 80 Instruments, and we continue this partnership. I'm actually pleased to inform you that the university has officially approved our license to continue also for the winter, the coming next semester. So we are really looking forward to working with 80 Instruments. But I think today belongs more, not for the political side of things, but more from Diana's side, where she can really share with you her experience, the pitfalls, and how we could further improve. So I really would now hand over to Diana. So Diana, please. Thank you.
Okay.
I'm just going to remove my video so that you have all the browser.
Yeah, I was trying. Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
I'm just trying to switch on the camera now for a second. Okay. Yeah. Hello. And this is my screen. So hello from my side. So I will just talk about now our experiences before, shortly, and also during the pandemic. First of all, creating these online sessions wouldn't have worked if we wouldn't have worked together as a team. So we had middle of March, we got to know, okay, we have to go online, and we had practically 2 months to prepare everything. Luckily, as Nandu already mentioned, we had some experience with 80 Instruments, which helped us. But of course, this total online version, we were newbies to that. So first, a short introduction, what we actually teach. We teach first and second year medical students. We have approximately 480 students per semester. And in this summer semester, it was in June, actually, we have 3 courses, which we normally have live. And these are the ones we had to turn upside down and totally move online. So these were these 3 on the part. This was the hearing and balance, reflexes, temperature sensors, and virtual sites. So before that, they were all hands-on practica. So also student-student contact, we could not exclude. And also they had to, the aim normally was that everyone is trying the instruments, they are measuring their own physiological parameters. So definitely not doable during the first wave of pandemic. So what we did, our previous experience before the COVID was in winter, we have the respiration and pH regulation laboratory. So that was, yeah, we used already lab station and also this power labs. Neurophysiology, we used the lab tutor. And the other labs, this hearing, reflexes, and visual sites, they were based on either lab tutor or without any online or PC instruments. So that was a challenge for us. So what we did before, before COVID, especially in the respiratory tract, we had stations. So the students had to organize their own time. So they were a bit used to work individually, or like they managed their own times. They had to work by their own or in small groups to solve some problems or issues. Also patient data, they had to record their own data. They could compare their own data with different instruments. But during the COVID time, definitely in December, that was not possible because exhalation, maximal exhalation and inhalation was the main topic of this lab, meaning that would be too dangerous for everyone. So how to move this lab to a virtual lab, where the interesting part and the exciting part for the students was actually to measure their own parameters, get in touch with the instruments. So luckily we had these instruments, we had recordings, and also 80 Instruments provided some ready measurements. So we decided to use first to allow the students to refresh the theoretical backgrounds. So all the lectures which was preparing for the practicum were of course first online. Then they had the LT lessons we created, where they had short answers, drag and drop and drawings, then also introduction to the measurements they would have done normally so that you could see the instruments. We had also the videos to show them how this measurement setup would have been. And then of course, showing them the data, the already pre-recorded data, and that at least this one transition they could do in real life was to do the calculations by their own. So we decided that normally they have like one condensed day, or one group has one day where they do all this work, which I just showed you up here. So now we decided during this whole pandemic chaos, we will give them more time. So they will have 1 month to go through this lesson, and so that they can have their own time management, which we thought is more convenient. And to ensure that they also do this, the lessons online, we decided to give them 40% of the points, and 60% of the points they will receive at the end of this month. They will all do an online test. Just that we have first the feedback how it worked, if they could really soak up the information of this lesson, and also somehow we had to grade them, yeah. They had support from our side 24 hours, like every day, basically via email. They could contact us in emergency. Of course, they could have called us as well. And at the end, we decided also to insert an additional session to have a WebEx meeting, that in case there's troubleshooting or if they have some further questions, that we can actually talk about it. So I'm very sorry that this is in German, but I couldn't, because we teach in German. So that was one thing we had, of course, to translate. Some sessions are in AD Instruments in German, but we had also to adapt and actually translate some of those things. So anyhow, we decided to inform them thoroughly what is going to happen to them, how they are going to use the system. And that's why this is really convenient from AD Instruments, that they have this trial sessions where the students actually get the system explained, why they can try out drag and drops and everything. So what we do, first always we decided to refresh a little bit their basic knowledge, that they come into the topic. Then we ask them questions they should solve by themselves, which they can do with the help of course, the lectures they heard before, and also the written material we are providing them. And the aim was, yeah, they really should ask the question themselves and then find their own solution and write us the answers. I have to say, before we had a version where they could type in the correct answer, and then they had to commit, and then could see from our side what would have been a correct answer, or what we would have liked to hear. So later on, it seemed like this was a bit confusing for them, or I don't know, daunting, I don't know. They didn't prefer that version because they had the feeling after fulfilling everything that they missed some points, or they were not doing it correctly, unless we just actually wanted to give them additional information, and their answer would have been totally fine. But it put them somehow in a kind of under pressure. So we always try to, in that way, we show them the instruments, what we were using, and also what other instruments are normally on the market. And then also have some examples so that they can actually mark by themselves what is the importance of these flow volume curves, for example, and they have to write. So in that way, we can get a kind of feed if they understand what this lesson is about. And of course, also then to show them some disease or pathological situation, so that they can actually, with the knowledge they gained beforehand, explain what is going wrong here. So this is what I was mentioned. It was also provided by AD Instruments, of course, this video. So this is what we would have normally done in the lab. And we decided to really explain thoroughly how this measurement, the setup would have been, so that they get an idea and a grasp how to actually measure this. And then we went point by point, that they see actually the recorded data, they could go through it, and we explain on the side what they can see. And here they can put their own data in, and then also they can analyze the already present data, so that they get a feeling of working with raw material and raw data, and then also troubleshoot what is the problem with that. This, we have different versions, so we explain actually the baseline of the recording, so that they really understand how this recording happened, and then what they can see at what point. and then have reflective questions so that they can really, based on what they see, which should be the point of a practicum, I would say, that based on the exercise they have performed in that way virtually, that they can problem solve it. Yeah. So, and then at the end, also some other topics, of course, having some examples like from the clinics so that they can decide how would they diagnose those patients. So what did we learn from this first way of LT online version from us? The feedback from the students was quite diverse. First, they were, of course, frustrated that suddenly everything is online. They had to, instead of working in a group, bigger group, they had to be alone in front of their PC. So that was what they really didn't like, but unfortunately, during the situation, we cannot change that. They missed, of course, as well, the exchange with the teachers, which we tried to overcome with the emailing and also later on with the WebEx, but somehow they had at the beginning a kind of barrier to really contact us. And that also indicated that the motivation was a little bit diverse. This depends still a little bit on the groups, because some, they really enjoyed this independent working. They had their own time frame. They really enjoyed it. And the other part of students were like, okay, they prefer the group work. So I already mentioned one part was the feedback that the students actually know when they did something wrong or right. So first we had that with the commitment button and that they have the correct answer, which was on the one hand too much for them. Somehow some felt under pressure, and it started that the answers of this field made the surrounding in the student group. So I had suddenly my own answer as their student answer. So some copy pasting was happening, which was not the aim of this lesson. So later on, we decided to have no feedback, and afterwards, after the final test, to have this WebEx meeting to at least have some exchange. So what did we learn? Because it was also not optimal for this semester now, we decided to have a hybrid version, because now we can have practica in smaller groups, so we can keep the distance and the hygiene up. And we decided to use this LT for the preparation for this wet lab. So we get all the theoretical background. They can really, in their time frame, go through this. We have the same examples. We show them also in advance the measurements, or also the instruments, so that they are mentally prepared. And so that in this lower amount of time, we have really condensed working. So we can more deeper actually exchange our knowledge and what they gained from the online lesson. And they can, so I think we can take more out of this than practical lesson. And still they can have the virtual feedback, and also they will have the hands-on on the instruments, which they were missing. Still, so we decided now to release the pressure and put back the idea of self-studying, that they have this online lab just to actually learn the background knowledge and get through this. And they don't have the feeling that they have the correct answer to put in, and otherwise they will lose points or so. It should be just for self-studying, that they are prepared for the lab. And we will control in that way if they really did these lessons and not just click through in 2 seconds. We have an entrance exam or entrance test, which contains questions really referring to the online lesson. And then we have the practica, so we are in touch with them and can really discuss more in detail these topics. So this is what we are trying now with the visual site. So here again, they have the background, they get to know how this eye is working, all these basic things, and showing them the neural connections, and then always having these questions where they have to answer, that they can write and answer it, what they think is the right answer, then they can click and check the answer, but it will be not committing their answer. They can work on it and try it out several times. Of course, always then what they have learned, that they can really use it. We have some patients and situations to mimic so that they can kind of diagnose these physiological observations. So we always try to have the transition from the theoretical background to the hands-on, more clinical situations, so they can see also the instruments. This is the instruments we will have, so that they are prepared what is going to happen in this condensed parts here. I think you know this annotation things. So this is how we try to solve, or this is what we learned from the last year, that actually students still like this contact. And exactly what I wanted to say, what we realized in some cases that there was a kind of, because they're saying, okay, you can contact us anytime. That is something they are not, the older students, I would say, they are not really used to that. They don't really want that in that way. And that's why we just tried to loosen that situation up by having now at the beginning a WebEx meeting before this whole online session starts, that they get to know us, see our face, that we are talking to them, and just more and more encouraging them that they can talk to us, they can write us if they have issues. So what we did also in this WebEx meeting now for this visual side, that we really also went shortly through the lessons to see, hey, this is what you are going to see, this is what you're going to work through, and this is what we expect from this online version, and this is what we expect from you then to know also when we come back to the practical work. So I'm curious now how in next week we will start with the hybrid version. So I'm curious how the students will deal with it. Our also another experience was that the students who are advanced in the medical studies, who knew the system before COVID, they had more trouble than the ones who just started now, like just started during the COVID time, who were more used then to this whole online and self-studying system. So I think also this is something everyone has to get used a little bit to, this online version. Yeah, I think this is from my side so far. And I'm happy to hear if you have some questions or so.
Fantastic. Thanks, Nandu and Diana, for that presentation. It's great to see you using the platform in innovative ways with the students. A couple of questions in the chat. One from Amy just asking, have you found students engage more often with the content with being able to revisit the material and retest themselves?
Yeah. I think this is always a bit student dependent, but what we realized with the first semesters, which did the blood tests online, that was a very positive feedback, and they were revisiting it. Yeah, they actually enjoyed just to try it out several times. And also, if you live this, and for some seems like if you lived a little bit this burden of they have to type in this correct answer and you cannot change it anymore, I think they prefer the more flexible version. Yeah.
And the student feedback bears that out, does it? You've had different student feedback since you've implemented that change.
Sorry, again?
Sorry, has the student feedback changed since you've changed the way that you deliver that content? Have they, they've enjoyed that way of delivering better? Yeah,
I think that was the comparison between the first semesters and the third semester students. So they really enjoyed having this freedom of revisiting and having this constant trial and error method. And also, I'm now actually curious about the feedback from this semester, because when we have this hybrid version, so I think it will get better. And it was still mixed, but yeah, I think it will improve I think personally that the hybrid version will be the optimal one.
Okay, thank you. And one from Richard just asking, the clinical situations you've mentioned, are these ones from LT, or are these ones that you've developed yourselves and inserted into your cases?
So some of them are from LT and some we developed from ourselves. So we have some, because during our normal classes, we also have, we had some patient situations. So we were using that, for example, this blood parameters. So we were using our own and also from LT. We mixed it up a little bit, yeah.
Okay, perfect, thank you.